Hi everyone, so welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do Ranunculus. One of my followers on YouTube requested it. She had difficulty with it, so I thought, well, I'm going to have a go because I've never done them before. So I had loads of videos and went online, did loads of research on the flowers. Last weekend I actually went to our local flower show at Harrogate, the spring show, and fortunately they had Ranunculus growing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down to my board now and I'm going to show you how I did it. Right, so the first thing that I did, I used a polystyrene ball, but a full foreign. I've seen people do it with a full ball like this, and as I say, I've watched a lot of other videos to see how other people did them, and I found that the best way to do is to cut this in half. So I'm using a serrated knife here to cut that in half. Just get rid of those bits out of the way. So you've got two halves, so you can get two flowers out of that. I'm just going to put those to one side for a minute. And then we go on to the wires I'm going to use. Now anything that's done on one wire, generally we do on a 20 gauge wire. So if I get a 20 gauge wire out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that into three. Just get ready that out of the way, put that in my little work caddy there. As I keep saying to people, these are florist scissors. Don't just use any kind of scissors if you're going to cut wires. If you've got wire cutters, then that's fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bend a wire into a hook. I'm just trying to find my long nose pliers. These balls, if you don't want a lot of them, they do come in assorted bags like this. I got these from eBay. I've used up most of the 1-inch balls. I've just got one left in there, but I've got some smaller and some larger ones. So they'll probably come in for something at a later date, I've no doubt. So I can't see where I've put my long nose pliers to get my hook in here, so I'm just going to have to risk bending that over. Now I've got that a little bit long, so it's a bit easier if you've got some pliers, so I wouldn't recommend bending them like that if you can avoid it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the wire into the centre of the polystyrene ball and then just bring the hook down into the ball. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit of it showing because we're going to cover that. So I'm going to come on to that in a minute. I'll just put this other piece of the polystyrene ball to one side, and I'm going to get some green paste here. Because you don't want the top of the flower. I'll show you one that I've already done. This is one that I've finished here. Is fairly flat. Some of them do come down at the side, so it's your flower and it's up to you whichever way you want to do it. Now some of them that I've got ready to colour, I've done a white one here. One of the petals has dropped back on it, where I have come down a little bit on it, and one of my petals has dropped back, but never mind, that's one that's getting ready for finishing, dropping the petals, so we won't worry about that. So I've gone for the sort of flat version like that. A lot of them did seem to be quite flat, but there are quite a lot of different variations even in Ranunculus. They're not all the same. So if you go online and get loads of pictures up and have a look at them, and then you do it the way that you want to do it. Right, so I'm going to get a ball of paste, green paste, about the size of a Malteser. get my glue, and then I'm just going to coat the top of the polystyrene with the glue. The petals are going to hold all this in place anyway, so it doesn't matter too much, but you need something for the paste to stick to, so I'll just put that to one side. Put your ball of paste on top, and then if you just go around the side of it just to pull the paste out to the edge of the polystyrene ball, so basically what you're aiming for is for a small mound in the middle on the top of your cone, so it's not too rounded that way, so you're going to get a reasonably flat surface when you put your petals on. Just going to pop that to one side for a minute. Right, now then, just wrap that up, so I don't need that just yet. The cutters that I'm going to use are actually Ranunculus cutters, and if you notice the cutters are flat on the top here, and there's not a lot of frilling or anything on the top of the petals. They are quite flat, and you could use a rose petal cutter, but I would take a little bit off the top if you're going to do that, because you don't want it to be too rounded, because the petals are like that, they sort of all go around in a spiral. But we'll get onto that in a bit, because I did find online there were drawings of the top of the petal showing how the petals go, sort of using lines to depict the petals and how they go, and they sort of more or less go around in a spiral, a bit like a rose but not quite the same. Right, so I'm going to start off with the smallest petal and the largest petal. Now first of all, before we get onto it, now I'm going to do the orange one, which is this one here, or peach. Now a lot of them, like the pink one, start lighter in the middle and then work to down to darker petals on the outside. This one hasn't been coloured, I've left that to do later. And some of them are a total deeper colour, like the burgundy, like this one, which again, it wants colouring, does that. And then I've got the white one that I showed you before that, which I'm going to show you a different effect on that one. So we'll start off with this one first. So what I've done is I coloured my paste by adding hang on, which one's which there? That's it. I started off with the yellow paste in the middle, and then what I did was, to the second one I added a little bit of what colour did I use? Claret to that. And then after that, then I started adding peach into the different shades. So I've gone from sort of like a pale peachy colour to a darker peachy colour to an even darker colour and darker still, to get that orangey effect on the top of my flower. So I'm going to start off, first of all, I'm going to do the outer petals, and the reason for that is because I want those to stiffen up whilst I'm doing the rest of it. So we'll put a bit of white fat onto my board, ready to roll that out. May seem a bit strange starting with the last layer of petals first, but they're going to be, I want those to be stiffened up so that I can place them the way that I want them to be. Just in case you wondered what that was in the background, that was Alexa telling me that somebody's going to my front door. But that's because my fence blew down, and every time my neighbours walk past, I get Alexa in my ear telling me that somebody's walking past. Can be a bit annoying sometimes, you know, but there we are. That's the electronic year that we live in now, isn't it? We're all having to get used to these artificial intelligences telling us what's happening. Right, so I'm going to cut out 12 petals. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I might not get 6 out of this. What have I got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9. I'll have to cut another 3 out. Never mind. Just the way things are. That's 1. I'm just going to put these straight onto my pad as I take them out. Let's get rid of that plastic out of the way. You don't want to be looking at that. Now normally I only cut a couple of petals out at a time to do these and have all my bits and pieces ready, but with this flower, because everything's all on one wire, it's like doing roses. There isn't an easy way of getting everything ready, because I need the petals to be soft in order to attach them to the flower, and these I need to stiffen up. They should stiffen up enough whilst I'm doing my other layers. Don't forget, people, if you've got any suggestions at all, and this is the first suggestion I've had from people that are watching my videos, leave a comment. Tell me anything that you would like to see me do and I'll have a go. As long as it's something that I can get hold of, because obviously here in the UK there are certain flowers and that we don't get. But I mean, I have got books on tropical flowers and things like that. There's probably plenty that I haven't done. So if there's anything you'd like to see me do, then please do get in touch, because I like trying new things. I like to be challenged, shall we say. Two, 3. I think I've got the right amount there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's it. Yeah. What I'm going to do is, all of the petals that I'm going to put on are going to be the same number of petals. So there's going to be 6 petals per layer, and there's going to be 2 layers of each size of petals on this flower. Not as many as there are on the actual flower, but it's enough petals to get the effect that you want for this particular flower. Now if you wanted to do something that's realistic, you might want to put more layers on. That's up to you. But I'm used to doing flowers for cakes and things like that, and you've got to, as I've said before in my last video, when you're making sugar flowers to put on cakes and that, you've got to think about cost. We're not doing something just for your enjoyment here. I mean, if you want to put more on and you're doing it for enjoyment, say if you're doing cold porcelain or something like that, then that's fine. But if you're doing them for cakes, then you've got to think about the cost. So I'm going to thin all the way around the edge on each of the petals. I'm not trying to frill the petals here, although they will frill up a bit, but that will disappear in the next part. Some people use veiners, some people don't. I don't. For this one I haven't got a veiner that's suitable anyway, nothing that is fine like the petals. And I have got some ranunculus corms to plant, but unfortunately at this time of year, what we're in now, April, there's nothing like that in flower. the people at the show obviously had to plant them earlier and grow them in greenhouses in order to have all the flowers that they had at the show in flower, because they had a lot of flowers like dahlias and gladioli and things like that, all in flower, which are not going to be in flower until later on in the year. So they have to think in advance for these shows, and as we haven't had any for the last few years because of COVID, I presume a lot of people haven't been that prepared for these shows, so there weren't quite as many people showing as you usually get, but there was a lot there. Right, so I've done those petals. So what I'm going to do now is I've got my bobble foam here, just moving some things off that I've got on it, and move those leaves. I've made some leaves earlier ready to do this, and what I'm going to do, sorry, another stage there that I've forgotten to do, I need my trusty veining tool. I'm going to get onto your hand and then in a fan motion roll out with your veining tool. It's only very mild veining, it's not that obvious, but it does add to the realism. If you don't want it too flat and plain, you want some sort of detail in it. I know it seems as though you're taking forever doing one job, but unlike a lot of other people, I don't like speeding videos up to show things at high speed, because you're not actually doing it at that speed, and particularly people who are just learning need to see things done in real time, as I would do if I was demonstrating for a class when I was at college teaching there. They would sit and watch me do everything step by step in real time, and I don't see any reason why people watching YouTube should see things any different, because you've got time to let the information sink in whilst you're watching somebody doing it. I know sometimes the videos can get a bit long depending on what kind of flower you're doing, but the point is there that watching it in real time you can see exactly how long it takes to do these things. And I mean, you may be a bit slower than me, I may be doing things at a much higher speed than particularly learners anyway. People that have been doing it a long time will probably be able to do it at the same speed I am. I'm not saying criticising anybody for that, but normally if you want to get anything right, you take your time with it, don't you? Right, just get that out of the way. Move that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get these petals and I'm just going to drop them into the foam sort of upright with a very slight curve on the bottom, in the bottom of the well, like that. Just put that over there and slight curve, just push it down. Now some people did get a bit more shape into it, but I found them a bit difficult to handle, and I think this is probably the easiest way if you want your petals off. Because you're using a half round, as you put your petals on, they do tend to shape themselves anyway because they're very close together. So the flower shapes itself naturally. Right, so I've done 9 of the petals like that. Now the next thing I'm going to do slightly differently. I'm going to get the next 3 petals, I'm going to turn them the wrong way round and put those into the foam now. So the wrong way round, with the plain side uppermost. If you wanted to, you could vein them on both sides and then that doesn't matter. But when we come to put them together, then you'll understand why I've done that. So we'll just get rid of those out of the way and we put those to one side to dry. Right, so I'm going to go on to the first colour and the first size of petals now. Probably only need about half of that paste there, I've got too much out. Put some more white fat on my board. This just makes it easier to roll around, because I've noticed some demonstrators lifting the paste up and moving it around like you do a piece of pastry. Don't do that. You put the white fat on the board so your paste stays on the board and you don't pick it up until you've finished doing what you're doing. It needs to stick to the board and stay put. This is the way I was taught to do flowers and roll petals out and that. Now you need to be really thin with this paste because there's so many petals on it. You don't want your paste thick, because if it's too thick then it is going to look bulky. Right, so I've cut that out. Then I'm going to get the smallest petal now, and I'm going to cut out 12 petals. For anybody that's watched my video on the vegan flower place, which is what I'm using here. Hang on, I'll just have to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. On this paste for this video, the paste that I'm using now, I've used a bit less Tylo in, because the first lot that I made, it was very firm and hard to use. So if you find it's hard to roll it out, then just put less Tylo powder in. I think with this, I put a tablespoon and a half rather than putting the full 2 tablespoons. In the recipe it does say 1 to 2 tablespoons, so it's how you work with it, it's how it feels to you, which is the best. It's not like baking things, you know, where things are more of an exact science. It's like cooking, where you do things the way that feels right to you. Right. Get those onto my pad. I hope you can see these on camera, because being a pale colour it doesn't show like. That's why I didn't do the white one, for the simple reason that when I put it on the pad you wouldn't be able to see it. So I thought it's better to do one of the coloured ones. And the orangey coloured ones seem to be the most common colour. While we're talking about that as well, I don't know whether anybody knows this, it is actually part of the buttercup family. That's where the Ranunculus comes from. So the wild form is a buttercup, and then this is the sort of flower that's been progressed through that, like they do with flowers now, to get all sorts of different things to cross-pollinate with different flowers to get to where they are now. And buttercup is where these started. It's amazing what you can learn on the internet nowadays. When I first started we didn't have all that, but it comes in really handy having that sort of information, especially when you're teaching and you're talking to people, if they understand about what's what, if that makes any sense. If you don't want to use a rose cutter and you haven't got the Ranunculus cutters, you could actually use, if you've got any triangular shaped cutters that go down to small sizes, you could use those. It doesn't matter that it's got a square corner on it, because when you get the flower together, nobody's going to notice that. I did see somebody demonstrating as well using all-in-one cutters. The shape of the cutter wouldn't have been my choice, but I mean, it looked alright when it was done. You know, it's the effect that you're looking for. As long as people recognise it as the flower that you're wanting to do, then that's the main thing, isn't it? That's what it's all about. So again, I'm going to do the veining on it. Now when you add these petals to your centre, for the first couple of layers, you have the, or probably first four layers, you have the veining on the back of the petal, because that's what's going to be showing. If that makes sense. Because they are, as you can see, if I just point my camera that way a little bit, you can see the top of it there. It really comes into the top. Veining's not that obvious, but I mean, if you want to be pedantic and get all the detail in, then this is what you need to do. Oops. Stuck to my pad. Now I'm just going to do this all the way through with this particular layer, but on the next layers what I'll probably do is to not go through this on camera. I'll switch the camera off and then come back when I've done it, ready to attach them to the flower, because that's the most important part, how you attach them to the flower to get that effect that you're wanting to achieve. But you see me do two lots of petals anyway, so right. So I'm going to turn these over with the point towards me. Now the easiest way to do when you're doing the first layer, how many we've got there? 5, 6, there we are, is to put the glue on the centre. Oops. Just turn these over and then we're ready to go. Please bear with me, don't fall asleep while I'm doing this. Normally when I was teaching classes at college, we'd only do certain steps. The first week I'd do a full demonstration, they did nothing, and then the next week then I'd show them a bit, they'd do it, show them a bit and they'd do it, and go at their own speed. I don't like rushing people to do things, because when they're just learning at the beginning, you need to take your time. Right, so I'm just going to put glue all over the top of that piece that I put on there. You could let that dry if you wanted to before you start, but it will work anyway, even if you don't. Right, so I'm going to bring the petals up almost to the very centre, like that, and then just go around overlapping your petals. These are going to go on flat. Doesn't matter that there isn't any glue underneath there, because if they lift up a little bit, that's fine. And then the last one overlaps both of the first one and the last one, and that's how they go on the flower, because I did look at them very closely to make sure that that's how they go. You don't tuck it under like you do with a rose. Right, so the next layer, just going to lay that down for a minute, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put glue on half of that petal. They're very tiny, these, so it's not a lot. I'm going to spill that out, I was not careful. There we are. So we start where the last one overlapped. Turn that round, and then that one goes over that join between those two there. Oops, dropped it. Slightly lower down, so that's now going over onto the polystyrene bit. I'm not pushing it down this time, I'm leaving these to stand up. And what you find is you tuck your petals on with the different sizes, they will lift up on their own. Like that. So basically it's just the bottom part that you're sticking down. Bring that up a bit further, up there, that's it. So when this dries, it's going to help to attach that first piece that we put on to the foam ball, and then the last one. It's not completely overlapping. I've probably gone a little bit too overlapped, a bit too far on there. So that's the first layer of petals. So I'm just going to pop that to one side. Get rid of that, and we're going to go on to the next colour, which is the peachy colour. I'm going to change size of cutters, so that's going to go back into there, and I want the next one out. If I can get hold of it. That one and that one away, and leave the small one. Alright, so we're going to go on to the next size up. Make sure you screw the back top on your glue bottle, don't knock it over like I did the other day. It's not sticking to the board, so I'm just going to put some white fat on there. Oops. While I'm doing this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like any of the videos you like, and if you've got any comments or any questions, leave them in the section below, and particularly if there's anything you'd like to see me do. I know I'm repeating myself here, but I know some people might be a little bit shy about leaving comments. Some people are not. But I do like to hear from you all. You know, it's nice to know what people think. That's the way that we all learn. You need to be able to more or less see the pattern on your board through the paste. That's how thin you want to be. Same as you would if you were doing rose petals. Right, I'm going to cut out 12 of these. Right, that's that done. Put that back in there. Onto my pad. Pop that back in there. So you've got 5 sizes of petal cutters in this set. and then you've got 5 different colours of paste to do one like this, where it's paler in the centre. Normally with the rose I'd start off with a deep colour for the centre and then just keep adding white to each layer that I do, but unfortunately because of this ranunculus being the other way around, you need to make your paste in advance. I mean, a small amount of paste goes a long way. You could do quite a few flowers out of one lot of paste, so don't waste it. Oops. Just talk amongst yourselves while I'm doing this. That's what I used to tell my students. Although some of them are very intense and they have to watch every little step that you do to make sure that it sinks in, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they're quite often things that you like doing and things that you don't like doing as well. When I first started, the thing I hated making was leaves. I don't know why, don't ask me why, but a spray of flowers don't look right unless you put leaves in them. So I did them, and then I got quite into them, you know, so it can be just as fascinating as the flowers, depending on what kind of leaves you're doing, of course. Right, so I'm going to vein these now, so I'm going to come back when I've veined all these, ready to attach them. Right, so I've got all my petals all ready to attach, so I'm going to turn them over with the vein side down and glue the back of them. The reason for this is because the first layers that you put on, you're going to be seeing more of the back of the petal rather than front. That's why I'm doing them that way around. On the next layer after this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's the first layer. On the next layer after this, then I'll do them the other way around with the vein side outwards, because you will see more of the inside of it then as you get on, as the petals open out. You don't have to do this, it's just my choice to do this. Everybody will do it their own way. If you've got a double-sided veiner that's fine enough to do something like that, fine, they're going to be veined back and front. Right, so all I'm going to do is to just glue the bottom half of these petals. We want them to stand off a little bit, so don't glue too far up. As we keep saying, you can put it on but you can't take it off if you get too much on there, because it can affect your colouring when you come to colouring your flowers. Right, so that was the last petal that I put on, so I'll start in between those two there. This next one will go on. I'm going to come down a bit. So now, because I'm pressing it onto the back here, you can see how the petal's starting to stand off now. So it's standing away, so just go around it like that. Just going in between the previous layer, just pull that down a little bit. Just making sure I'm in camera shot, because I don't want to go off like I used to do when I first started. Doesn't matter if they don't overlap at this point, it's just a matter of getting them all spaced out all the way around, like that. And keeping them at the same level as well. Make sure it's fully attached at the bottom. Push those up a little bit. There we are, so that's that layer on. So I'm just going to glue the next layer ready to put on. So what I'm going to do between each of these layers now, when I come to the second one, to the next layer, I'm just going to switch off and cut them out, because you've seen me do that, and then come back when I've got them, the edges thinned and the petals are ready to go on. Right, so next layer, where was the last one that I put on? That one. So again, your points in between. You could do this underneath if you wanted to do it upside down. You could do it that way. Because what I'm going to do is, when I've got all these petals on, I will hang it upside down as well, so the petals stay in place. Because otherwise they may drop back. Oops. That one doesn't want to behave. And you can come down a little bit, because on some of the flowers they do come down a bit. They don't always stay at the same level. As I say, it depends on how you want your flower to look as how you do it. Everybody's got their own opinion on how they like it. And with a flower like this is why you need your paste to be thin, and you need the right type of cutters really to get the same sort of effect, because the petals do come in quite closely like that. So that's 2 layers on like that. So I'm going to hang this upside down now. I'm going to pop that in there like that. And the next colour that I'm going to go on to is the next darker shade, which is this colour here. And I'm also going to move on to the next size up, which is the 3rd size. As I said before, the tip is to make sure that you get your paste really, really thin. It wants to be like tissue paper. That's how thin it wants to be. So the next cutter I'm going to use is this size here. I'll just leave that there, because that'll be the next one after that. And again, cut out 12 petals. If you want to get more out of your paste, if you haven't got a lot, turn it round like that. What we've got there? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think we're right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. No, I've got one too many. Never mind. Doesn't do any harm to have one too many, just in case you happen to stretch one out of shape or drop one or whatever the case may be. Not like I've done. I've done 11 and then had to roll paste out just to do one more petal. Happens to the best of us. And like I said before, if there's anything goes wrong when I'm doing a video, I don't cut anything out, because if it goes wrong, then you need to know how I put that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I have got 13 there. So I'm just going to keep a spare one just for now anyway, just in case. You never know what's going to happen, dear. I've just got one more colour there to use. Right, so I'm going to come back in a minute when I've done all these. Right, so I've got all my petals ready. So all I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to turn them round because I've veined them on that side. As it opens, you're going to see more of the inside, so I'm going to keep my veining this time facing forwards. So I've got 6 there for the first layer, and then six there for the next layer. Again, I'm only going to do the glue at the bottom tip here. Now you could either do this right way up or wrong way up, whichever way is best for you, but I just need to find, there we are, that's the last petal that I put on. So you get hold of the top of the petal and then you go in with the next layer, and as you press it on you see how the petal's standing off there. So you do that with all your petals. Add in your next layer, and the more you come down the half ball the more your petals stand off. Even when you put it upside down they will do, but when it starts to get in to the point where the petals are stiffening up, if you feel you need to open it out a little bit you can pull the petals out a little bit to get them to stay where you want them to stay. Oops. So that's the first layer of the next layer. So I'm just going to pop that back in there for a minute while I put the glue on the next set of petals. The advantage with this kind of flower, if you do your large petals first and let them dry, you can actually do this flower all in one go. Apart from the colouring, of course. Right, so we get that out. See where the last petal went. There. So then we start again in between those petals now. You can come a little bit lower down if you want to open the flower up a little bit more. See, these petals are nearly almost touching the wire now. You're getting down to the bottom part there. And the last one in there. There we are. So we've got to that stage now. So I can put that upside down now. I can cut out the next layer. So again, I'm going to go up a colour. So I'm going to use the last of the darker colours now. This is the last layer. That can go back in there because I didn't use that one. Didn't damage any petals, so I didn't have to use the 13th petal on that last lot. So again I want 12 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. Take that off and put it on my pad. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The one thing with the vegan paste you've got to watch is it is quite stretchy, so just be careful you don't stretch your petals too much with this, unlike normal flower paste as works slightly differently. But I have found so far with this, petals don't break quite as easily with this as it does with normal flower paste. So whether it's something to do with the fact that the different with the particularly the liquid glucose, and because it's got water in it as well, it reacts differently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've done 11, I've lost another one there. So hang on a minute, just open that paste back out again and cut another one out of there. I've either missed one or there's one still stuck in my paste somewhere. Never mind, I've got it now. So I'm going to go off and do these, and then I'll come back when I've thinned the edges and veined them. Right, so I've done all my petals and got them all prepared. And I'm sure there's somebody shouting at the screen now, you put one on your pad because it came out. Yes, I found it. I realised after I'd switched the camera off where it was. But there we are, I ended up with a spare. Never any shame in having spares just in case things don't go exactly to plan. Again, I'm keeping the vein side upwards because we're getting to a more sort of open look with the petals now. And again, I'm only covering the same amount of the petal with the glue. You don't want to go too far up because you do want them to stand off a little bit, otherwise it's just going to look too flat. And I'll do all these while I'm doing it, and then that's done. Right, so look to see where your last one was, and that's where you're going to start with your next row of petals. So that's going to go in between those two there. Oops. The advantage of doing flowers this way is you can slide petals back into place if they move around. As long as you don't put too much glue on and end up with it running all over the place. So there we are. That's that one. Then on to the next layer. So directly straight on in between the previous two. and the last one. Just go around and neaten your bottom up. So that's where we've got to so far with those. So I'm going to pop those upside down again. Just pop those in there for now. And I'm going to get the ones that I've already dried. Just get rid of that one there. That wants to go back in the bag. Waste not, want not. That's the way I was brought up. So we just take all those off the foam. Now these have all nicely shaped, so when they go on they're going to stand off a bit more when they get to the last layer. I think those are the ones with the burning the other way, aren't they? Hang on. Yeah. So I'm just going to put these three separately because of these are the other ones that are the other way up. So I want 6 of those to start off with. 5, 6, and then we'll glue the bottom of those. You only need the very bottom to be glued on these. And they're still pliable to do what you want with them when you get them on. So I'm going to keep the flower upside down again, and that was the last one that went on. And again, in between the petals, this time wants to go right down to the wire. See how that little rounded bit goes underneath there, right up to the wire. And then that one overlaps both of them. Right, I'm just going to pop that. Where's my pad? There it is. I'm just going to pop it on my pad upside down. I'm just going to leave that like that. It's not going to be on there long enough to damage the other petals because they should be stiffening up a little bit as well. So these three are the ones that are going to go the right way up. And then these three are going to go the other way up. So they're going to curve in this way, but with the veining on the outside. It will become obvious in a little while why I'm doing that. But this is, again, this is your preference. You don't have to do this if you don't want. If you want them all to be upright, that's fine. It's your flower. So if I put these on, so I'm starting with the first one that I did there. So that's going to go in like that. Then I'm going to miss one and then go in between that one there, and then that one there. Oops, dropped one. There it is. Got it. Where's that going to go? In there somewhere. There. And then the other ones are going to go in this way so that they stand off a little bit. like that. So that's now where we've got to with that flower. Right, so I'm just going to leave that on there for a minute, put that to the back, get rid of my paste there, and I want my green paste now. Again, there it is. Now for the next bit, to make the calyx, I'm going to use a Stephanotis cutter. So if you look at the back of these that I've already done, that's how the calyx looks on the back of the Ranunculus. Rather than using a rose petal vein cutter that's quite sharp on the edge, so that's your shape for your Stephanotis cutter. So I just need to roll out enough paste for one of these. I'm not going to put a hip on it or anything like that. I forgot to look at the back of the flowers while I was at the show. I should have looked at that to see whether there was or there wasn't, but I'm not going to put one on my flowers, because when you get them in an arrangement you don't really see the back of the flower anyway. I mean, if you're entering a competition then you need to be botanically correct, but we're not entering a competition here. We're getting the overall effect of the flower to make it look like a ranunculus. So I'll cut that out. Onto my pad. Thin the edges. This should help to stabilise your petals as well when you've got them on. Then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to turn this over, and then from the edge of your petals pull it down and cup it. Like that. Oops, sticking to my fingers because we've got the grease side there. Just pop that to one side for a minute. And I'm going to get my glue. I'm not going right up the sepals, just part way. Then if I straighten my wire for this as much as I can, and then that goes into the centre there, and then I'm just going to lower that down onto the petals. And if you get something with a sharp edge, you can use my silk veining tool just to lift the parts of your calyx out onto your flower, and just gently press that down like that. Then I can bend that over and I can leave that to dry. So that's the flower so far with the calyx on the back. So I'm going to put that to one side to dry now. Right, so I'll get rid of those. Then we're going to go... Oh, didn't do a leaf, did I? Fortunately, with this set that I got, the leaf cutter came in with the set. So if you have a look around your sugar craft shops and online and that to see if you can try and get one. It's quite a complicated shape. I mean, you could cut this out by hand if you wanted to, but as it happens, as I say, I got this in the set. So I'm just going to roll some green paste out for this. Need to, yeah, I can get one out of that. That's it. I'm only going to do one leaf. I'm not going to do loads of them. Then I'll get my trusty ridge rolling pin. If you're using a ridge board, then just do it on your ridge side. But always remember when you're doing it on the excuse me ridge side of your board, to turn it over so you can see where the ridge is. So when you put your cutter on, you can see that your ridge goes up the centre of your leaf. Press down. Lift that off and just gently. Now it's a good idea when you're doing anything like this to get something with a pointed end and get right into your points there and lift those pieces out rather than stretching it, so you don't stretch your leaf. You can use the end of a Dresden tool or anything like that for that job, particularly if you're using this kind of paste, because it is quite stretchy and you can end up, if you're not careful, distorting your leaf if you haven't got a really firm cut. Another way of doing it, especially with a complicated shape like this, is to roll out your paste and lay it across your cutter and then go over it with the rolling pin. That's another way you can do that. Especially if you find that the cutters are a bit sharp on your hands. There we are. So that's that. Just put that back into the bag. And then a 28 gauge wire. I've cut them into quarters because you don't need your wires too long. And again, like always, lay it on your first finger with your thumb on top. Just pull that up a little bit further up here so I can get my thumb right down. And then twist that into the bottom of your paste. And then just gradually feel it go up the leaf a little bit at a time until you get it up to where you want it to be. To keep your wire inside the ridge that you've got in your paste. Like that. I haven't come through. Now with this one I don't have a veiner for this particular type of leaf, so what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to thin the edges as normal. Turn it over with the flat side upwards. Then if you get your Dresden tool with the narrow end and with the heel part, that's the piece underneath here, not the point, just very gently put in a vein going right up the centre of the leaf like that. Then if I bring a vein out and go up the long part of the leaf there, then I bring a vein off of that and then off of that up those points there. Same on the top there. Same on there. I didn't look closely at the leaves to see what they look like. They just look a bit crinkly, the leaves, really, in reality when you look at them online. And then bring that off there like that. And then what I did then, because they're quite curled back, if you just go onto the back and then again go down the back like that, round the long pieces, just to curl them back a little bit like that, so that when you put them into the foam, lay them in the centre like that, so they go over there and curl back like that. And then you end up with a leaf looking like that when it's dried. Just pop those up there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to switch off for a minute. I'm going to find all my colours and get ready to colour some flowers for you. Right, so I've got some colours out here. I'm going to use some tropical lime for the very centre of the flowers, and then I've got an orange one here. I can't remember what it is. I think it's tangerine or something like that. I think it is. So you wanted quite a deepish orange for the orange one. I'll get onto that one for the white one, and then I've got where is it? I didn't get it out. I've got some blackcurrant that I'm going to use for the burgundy one. Right, so what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to start off by doing the calyx on the back. So I'm going to use ginkgo for that. I've already got some out on my paper here. So if I just get that out and just dust the calyx before I do the front. If you use a small brush like this, it's a lot easier. Then you're not getting colour onto the actual flower. If you get a little bit on there, it doesn't really matter, but because sometimes they do have a little bit of green on the petals. So that's the back done. So we'll go on to the front, and I've got a brush here that I can use for the orange, so I'm just going to get some of that out. So I'm just sort of going to catch the edges just to bring the colour into it. A bit like when you do a rose. You can go as far down as you want to do, you know, I mean it's your flower, so you can do it however you want. But I quite like doing it this way. It just gives them a little bit more body, if you like. You'll also find as well that the veining will stand out a little bit more when you've dusted it as well. Now you can go heavier on these outer petals because these are the ones that are the darker colour. And then if you just give a little bit of a waft over the lighter petals just to catch them on the very edge. And then I'm going to go into the centre, sorry, wrong green there, and they've got some tropical lime here mixed with a bit of the darker colour that I've got, and I'm just going to catch just the central petals there of the yellow ones, so there's that bit of green in the centre, and then I'm going to go on to a different brush. I'm just going to pop that down for a minute while I get this out. Put the top back on my orange. I've got some Forsythia here, which is a lightish yellow. I have got one that's lighter than this, but it depends on how light you want to go. But if you don't have too much on your brush, just make sure you get it on your brush and off your brush before you start putting it on, and then just catch the yellowy petals and a little bit of the edge of the first coloured peachy ones. There we are. Right, so that's one. The burgundy one, Again, I'm going to do the calyx on the back with the green. And then I'm going to go get that off my brush, and then I'm going to get some of this tropical lime. Just need a little bit more out. I'm just going to go into the centre there, those first petals, like that. Get rid of that off my brush, and then get my red brush, and where is it? That one. I haven't got much left in that, I need a new one. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Just hoping I've got enough on here to do this. It's just to catch the edges, just to make it look a little bit darker than it is. Just to bring the colour out, because the burgundy in these Ranunculus is quite dark. But I didn't change any of the colours with this. I went for the same colour all the way through with the dark burgundy one. I'll have to see if I've got some more colour somewhere. I might have to finish this off at a later date. So that's the burgundy one. Now the white one, I'm going to do something different with that I haven't done before on my videos, and it's a technique that I used when I'm doing carnations. When you get the light coloured ones with the colour very on the very edge of the petals. Where's the top? There it is. Leave that out, so I know I have to look and see if I can get some more of that. Don't need any more of that because I've got enough out. Get rid of that brush, and I'll start off with the tropical lime in the very centre of this one. So I'm just going to catch the petals just in the very edge with that. And then we'll do the calyx on the back. This is where you need to be very careful, because if you get any flecks of powder on a light colour like this, it will show up. So I'm just going to be extremely careful with this. Especially when you come to steam them at the end, because I always steam them to fix your colour. Right, that has dropped back quite a bit, and but that sort of adds to the realism when you get petals falling back like that, because when they get to the end, when they're fully open, they do start dropping back and dropping off. So I've got some Empress Purple here, and what I'm going to do with this, and this is one that I saw in a catalogue on oops, there we are. Then I've got some isopropyl in my, I don't know what they call these, shot syringes or whatever. Put some colour in that. And I'm just going to mix that in. I'm not going to use a brush to put this on. Now normally I'd use a piece of sponge, but I couldn't find any. So I'm going to try it now with kitchen roll. So you'll have to bear with me, this might not work. So what I'm going to do is dip that into the colour like that. And just get the flower, and then I'm just going to catch the very edges of the petals. I think I went a bit off shot there because I was concentrating on what I was doing. Apologise, people. I've loosened a petal, I'll have to repair that afterwards. So there we are, it's just got a tinge of purple just on the very edges of the petals. Right, so that's all my ranunculus there. I'm just going to move that one that's left to dry. I'm just going to put it back on my pad. And then I can bring my others down. And what I'm going to do for the last thing is I'm just going to colour one of the leaves. So for this I've just dusted this with some ginkgo. Depends how dark you want your leaves to be. Some of the darker flowers may be darker, so just use a darker green if you want a darker leaf on a darker flower. In general, you generally find that the leaves do go darker with the darker flowers. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, probably have done, specifically with roses and things like that. And then I'll just give it a waft over the back. And then that can be glazed as well. So what I've done with the one that I'd finished off, the pink one here, I've just put a couple of leaves on there just to give it a bit of character. I will put all these together before I put them on the Facebook pages that I go on, but for now, here are the ranunculus that I've done, the different colours. Just put that back in there. Just get rid of my colours out of the way. Move that. And put those down there. I hope you've enjoyed that, and like I said before earlier on, if you've got any suggestions about anything you'd like to see me do, then please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and be notified when I upload new videos. It's free to subscribe, and I hope to see you soon, and take care and stay safe.